We're live. What joy it is to be back together with you again. And it's a pleasure to be back together again on the station that loves music and loves life. Welcome to the month of February and welcome to the first edition of Office Journal right here on Smooth 98.1, where we love music and we love life. And you know that this is your go to show for career development, personal development, and all the conversations that can help you to be a better person so that ultimately you arrive in that place that you've always wanted to be in terms of your career and in terms of your life. So, from learning, from communication to finance to investments to everything that you need to know in the workplace and especially making decisions, we discuss all of them on Office Journal every Tuesday from 11 till 11:50 on Smooth 90.1. My name is Oluwaseun Olusegun. This is going to be the second part of this conversation because the first part of it, we had it in October 2025. And if you're following us on YouTube, you should have seen that conversation already. And if not, I think you can always search for hashtag Office Journal 981, talking about AI and how it's changing the workplace. My guest then was Azeez Omosun, and he's back in the studio with us again. So, in case you have seen the flyers across all our social media pages, then you know that we're having a part two of the conversation, and this time we are expanding it. We're going to be examining the roles of everybody. We're talking about the HR manager as well as the employee. So, who really needs to make some change or who needs to go out there in terms of development and how really is AI changing the workplace? Is it AI changing the workplace or is it the people that are restructuring to the organization and so on? Plus, how do you cope in such time as this? So this morning we're going to be examining the topic of reinvention in the artificial intelligence era, the role of the HR managers as well as the employees. And joining me in the studio, by the way, you can join us on YouTube where we're currently live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. At Smooth 981 FM Lagos. So in the studio with me is the managing consultant at Collavare Solutions, and he is focused on providing alternative solutions to everyday people challenges hinged on the values of collaboration and innovation. And at Collavare, they do believe that the belief is that people development is way more than just training people and getting the experts in the house to pass information to them, but it's more about creating additional value through people. So welcome with me, Azeez Omosun. Good morning.
Morning, Chill. Good to be here. Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming back on. For joining us from many, many miles away, literally above seas and waters and lots of mountain, is someone who helps organizations drive business results by improving how people perform on the job every day. And his work sits at the intersection of operations, technology, and people strategy. He's a frontline workforce enablement and performance advisor, as well as speaker. He's a techie, as well as a Disney alum, and also the author of the Frontline Enablement Playbook. So, welcome with me, JD Dillon. Good morning.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm excited about this conversation. So, we're just going to get right into it and try to understand the topic from both of you's perspective, which is reinvention in the AI era, the role of managers, HR managers, and employees. So, who do we start
Okay.
with?
Just some information. The last time I was here, we talked about AI and how it would impact work.
Yes.
But there was a question that you asked that really has, I had done some things after that. And you asked, how do people future-proof their career?
Yes.
And I said, they have to be able to create value at work, you know. So I left that discussion, and about 2 weeks after that, I was in a HR conference, and there was a panel of CEOs, and the question was asked, "What do you want from your HR people?" And it was they have to be to create value. And I realized that people we say create value, but nobody knows what creating value is. So um, I designed a course called Creating Value at Work. And in January, for a client of mine, during their strategic retreat, I actually delivered that course. And in between February 7th and 20th, I'll be having an online workshop where I talk more about that course. So thank you, Shion. So it was the question that you asked that actually made me to realize that a lot of things we say a lot of things, but people might not understand, and and it's important for us to basically dig deep into it. Now, secondly, I want to talk a bit about JD. In 2024, I was part of a team organizing a learning and development conference in Abuja. And I came across his profile, I think, in 2023, and I reached out to him, and he accepted to be one of the presenters in that retreat, which was in 2024, and I know he did justice to it. So this is the second time JD will be engaging with us in Nigeria. And by the way, where are you based in the US?
I am in Orlando, Florida. So it's
Oh,
5 a.m. right now, and I'm a little bit cold, but otherwise I'm doing well.
yeah, that's right. That's
Thank
right.
you for the inconvenience to be with us on this show. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
A-
happy to
And
be here.
lastly, yeah, and lastly, I think his early part of his career was on radio. So yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, I went to college for radio production. So 98.9 WMMO was my internship in college. I have a very large microphone because I came out of the radio world. So it's good to be back.
That explains the crispy quality of your audio, and that is beautiful.
Yes, very proud of
So
audio.
now, I think I'm going to go back then to you before we even get into the conversation. I mean, you have gone through a lot of things in your career over 25 years and in different spaces. And now that I'm just getting to know that you've been in radio, how did you cross over from what you've been doing to be in this current space that you are now?
It's really a conversation about skills and being able to apply what you can do uniquely to what Azeez was saying in terms of how to provide value at kind of the right time in the right place. I came out of college as a person who was focused in radio and had a particular set of skills when it comes to media production and speaking. And I was an operations manager. I used to manage movie theaters and theme parks. And I just along the way found myself in these moments where I could apply the different skills I came out of school with in different ways to help the team or help the company. So because I could speak and because I could build presentations and build video and audio content, I just kind of tripped my way into corporate training and then became an instructional designer, building content for training at Disney, and then became a manager of people who were building content and deploying training in organizations. And then as learning and development became more and more technology enabled, I kind of started finding my way towards the tech space, both first as a practitioner, and then I went into technology with a startup in Canada. And for the last 10 years, we built technology that frontline employees around the world use to do their job every day. So I think my career is a great example of what it means to remain open to how you can apply different skills, but the importance of continuously learning and developing yourself. And then instead of thinking about, well, what's my job description? It's more about, well, what can I do that's unique and how can I offer that in a way that's going to both provide value to the organization, but open new doors for me to be able to create that kind of next step forward. So I didn't go to school for any of the stuff I do. I went to school for this type of work and then just kind of applied these skills along the way in different areas outside of radio and television.
Now that is interesting. And I like that you mentioned again value because I'm going to come back to you for some of your discoveries in terms of value. Since you mentioned you realize that value is just a word that we throw around, but in the term in as touching putting together the course. So what did you find out in terms of value and how organizations perceive it?
Okay, so this is one of the things I discovered was that we assume people should know certain things. And that is that's a huge misconception. And I'll use an example. I heard somebody give some top executive in one of the multinationals was saying recently that she was in a meeting and one of the people in the meeting and just the way he spoke and the way he responded, didn't show decorum and some other things. And she later, you know, talked with the person. I think what surprised her was that the person didn't even know what he was doing was wrong.
Mhm.
And that's the point. assume people know what value is. If people are not taught, if people are not told what value is, then there is an issue. So that's really for me what I think surprised me the most, because we just assume that if you are working in a company, you should know what is required of you. But people do not. If they are not taught what is required of them, then they would assume what they think is required of them, and that's what they basically offer. So I think that for me was one of the things that really surprised me, which is why I said, you know what, I'm going to take out time to actually take people through this so that people understand what value means. And to round up, JD said something. The starting point of offering value is know yourself, know your strength, know what you offer, know what you bring. If you do not know what you bring and what you offer, then it's like you're living a counterfeit life. So I think that's the beginning point of offering value.
Mm. Now let's segue it into the artificial intelligence conversation, especially in this time where it looks like AI has altered or modified how value is delivered. And I think there was a particular post of JD that I came across. I think I'm going to quote him. He said, "AI does not change how work gets done; organizations do. Executives set standards, and stakeholders decide whether speed matters more than quality. So, in other words, they decide what value is to them." And managers determine if copy and paste is acceptable output. So, walk us through your thought process, JD, and talk to us about the reinvention of value in the context of artificial intelligence.
I find it's easy for people during a period of significant change and uncertainty when they don't know exactly where we're going. We kind of we try to simplify what's going on. And we say, well, AI is causing change, or will AI take my job? We have those types of conversations. And it's not specific to AI. It's just kind of anytime there's these seismic, massive changes that create opportunity, but at the same time create that uncertainty, what do I have to do to provide value moving forward? Is this going to change my job? Is my job going to go away? And we try to simplify a very complex issue, both from the side of the employee as well as the side of the people making decisions. Because I think organizations struggle to be transparent. They don't necessarily always want to tell you why things are the way they are, or how they're making decisions, or if their decisions are made based on real evidence or just based on fear of missing out, which executives often have, right? They want to take advantage of whatever the next big thing is and not be caught left behind. So when it comes to AI, we tend to say things like will AI replace jobs? And I look at it as AI is not making the decision, right? It's not the fault of technology. Yes, technology is often developed and deployed without necessarily the big thinking around what is this going to do to people and society and all of those factors, but we've been having that issue for decades at this point. So when it comes to AI, I think it's important for companies, teams, and individuals to remember these are human decisions that are being made by people who are running organizations to decide what's important to us? How are we going to run our business? How is work going to work here? And then those decisions impact people. Some of those decisions are being made because people see an opportunity to be able to do the work differently or more effectively, or open new doors through technology like AI. And sometimes I believe you're seeing people make decisions that are AI driven when it's really more about cost control, when they were just looking for a reason in order to downsize, to lay people off, maybe to make up for the fact they made bad decisions in the past. Maybe they hired a lot of people coming out of the pandemic because they saw growth in a certain area. That growth wasn't necessarily real. So now they got to find reasons to pull back. And there's this opportunistic moment to say things are changing through technology. And as a result of that, we're making these types of decisions. So I think it's challenging, especially as an individual worker, when you stay so focused on the technology, which is just rapidly evolving and it's hard to keep up. Even if you do this for a living, it's hard to keep up with where the technology is going. I think it's smarter and more strategic to pay attention to the stakeholders, to the decision makers, and get as close to that conversation as possible to understand, how is my organization changing? What do the people who are running my organization believe is important? And back to that value conversation, how can I provide value in the way that this organization is changing?
Appreciates, yeah.
Because I think that if we stay focused on the technology, we're going to miss a big part of the conversation, especially because right now, no one can tell you exactly where this AI story is going, right? Where are we going to be 5 years from now, yet alone a year from now, when it comes to how the technology's impacted work? It doesn't matter because all of those decisions are going to be made by people who are running organizations. So start with the people and the stakeholders who define what value means, and then figure out, well, how does technology influence the way that work is done and the way that I need to do my job, whatever my job might be turning into because of how work is changing.
Thank you. I particularly like the part where you said some are actually using it as an excuse for a cover up some of the bad decisions, because I know of some organizations that have been on a spree of downsizing, and I'm wondering if it's really that the AI is cutting down or making things efficient, or they are just using that to let people go. So I'm going to come to you. You're here in Nigeria. Let's talk about the adoption, especially with HR managers and the integration of it. I know that there is a possibility that out there some things might be automated, but we know that how we are here, it feels like there's still a slow adoption of some, and maybe others that are adopting, they're finding it hard to just merge things to have a hybrid of things. So in your experience, what is the adoption like here? And with HR managers, how are they integrating things?
Thank you. First, just to add to what JD had said, remember when I was here in November, October last year, I said something. Let's not make AI the villain.
Yeah.
You understand my point? Let's not make it. Irrespective of AI, for shareholders, their focus is how do we maximize returns. You understand? If that means that people have to go, so be it. So we need to understand. If it was not AI, it could have been a different technology, and we will still have the same issues. It's just that right now it's AI. The issue is that people will make decisions based on profitability and returns. And if people have to be let go because of that, they might do that. So let's understand that. Now, back to adoption of AI. Now, I want us to look at it from two levels. There currently a lot of the AI we talk about and the effect we see happens on the individual granular level. That's really what we are seeing right now. Meaning, AI is used for individual work improvement, efficiencies, augmentation, and automation. We are not currently seeing AI at the system level, and that's where it will get to eventually. So for now, if you ask me, I would say for what AI is currently offering us as value, we are using it well. But there is a challenge that I see happening in the future, and this I think is critical, because the challenge people in HR and L&D would have is not a technology challenge, it's a mentality mindset challenge. There's a comfortable concept of human resources that they see people in human resources see themselves as people who intervene to provide solutions to people who are in trouble. So in a way, HR will see themselves as people that employees come to for them to solve problems. That's basically how. And JD, I mean, I would like JD to talk about it because he's talked about this extensively. So what AI can offer us is an infrastructure whereby employees can solve their problems. They can learn without HR or L&D intervening. That's what AI will provide for us. Now, but you have a situation whereby human resources today loves that concept of people coming to them to solve their problem. You understand? Saver mentality. So what AI offers us is an infrastructure whereby people can use tools, applications to solve their problems. And they don't need to come to human resources. They don't need to come to L&D. My challenge is, are the people in L&D and human resources, are they comfortable with that identity? Because if you ask a lot of people, not a lot, some people today, why they join human resources, it's because I like people. I want to solve people's problems. So if a chunk of your job is no longer taking care of people, will you feel comfortable? You understand? So I think even if the infrastructure is there, the mentality of people in human resources needs to adapt so that we can get the best out of what AI brings to us. But I would like to hear JD's view on that as well.
I spent 6 years managing training in contact centers. And I would say I went into that position with a very traditional mindset. I think I had a different set of tools and tactics. I told stories in different ways, used technology in different ways. But I still thought about what we did in a very traditional way, which was contact center agents have complex products and rules and regulations. My job to make sure they know what they're doing. So I build and deliver training for people to help them do their jobs better. And then one day, unexpectedly, the company laid off like half the workforce. We had a building that was 2 floors. And then by the end of that day, we had 1 floor worth of employees in the location I was in. And that jolted me to realize, oh, the things yesterday that we found very important aren't important today. Am I looking in the wrong direction? Right? Shouldn't I have noticed that we were struggling in a way that would cause this type of decision? And shouldn't that struggle of the organization been informing what I was doing as the person responsible for helping people do their job? Why am I not connected to the organization in the right way?
Yeah.
So that day was the beginning of me starting to think about, well, maybe it's not necessarily me, it's the function. It's the way we think about what we're doing in trying to help people be successful and how I'm connecting what the company thinks is important to what people do every day and the role that I play in that. And it started to change me as a person who's in the learning and development and HR space. So in my next book, as you mentioned earlier, the Frontline Enablement Playbook, more information at frontlineplaybook.com, comes out in May. One of the questions I ask in the book, very directly, especially to people in HR, but this is true of every function, there's a header in the book that has the question, am I the bad guy? And I mean to provoke people to think about the relationship that they have to the people they're supporting and to the organization. And I think we get, as Azeez mentioned, very comfortable in the role that we play. This is what we do here. This is what our function is. And that leaves us open to that disconnect that I felt years ago, where the decision makers are thinking differently about the role that I play and the value that I play. And they're going to make a decision that's going to impact me because I don't see it the same way, because I'm so focused on what I am and what I do and how I define my value. So that's why I urge everybody to step back and disrupt yourself before someone else disrupts you. And to use this as an opportunity in any big change, as an opportunity to really step back and say, not necessarily how do we do what we do today better, but is what we're doing important? Is this necessary right now? Maybe a couple of years ago, the way we did our jobs was important. This was the best way to help people. This is the best way to help the organization. But things keep changing, and we keep reimagining work and reimagining what's important to the organization. So how can we step in and say, not just we need to use AI to do what we're doing today differently? Is this an opportunity to step back and say, is what we're doing the right thing to provide that value, both to the company as well as to the people that we're trying to help from an HR perspective? And how do we rethink our own function and keep evolving what we are and be open to, both as individual practitioners and as a function, be open to continuously changing what we do and applying our skills in new ways so that we can be as helpful as possible, rather than waiting for circumstance or decision makers to decide, oh, what you've been doing is not as important as what you thought it was. Because again, you were focused on the day-to-day. Everyone's got a huge task list, right? No one's sitting around right now thinking, what do I do today? Everyone's trying to do more with less. But in that, we have to carve out time and have tough conversations and ask ourselves and our own teams, right? Are we focused in the right areas? Are we providing value in the right ways before someone else asks that decision and changes things around us? And then we're reacting rather than proactively evolving and transforming what we are. So for me, it started in that day, in that layoff years ago. But I think that's what's important, especially if you're a non-revenue generating function, a support function like in HR. We have to be very honest with ourselves about what we represent today and not automatically assume, oh, we're the champions for people in the workplace. I would challenge anyone in HR. Look at what you do through the lens of the people you're trying to support. And I mentioned I do most of my work with frontline employees, and I can tell you, frontline employees are not huge fans of HR. Right? Usually when HR shows up, you're in trouble, you're fired. Like you don't really have casual meetings with the HR department when you work in retail or distribution or manufacturing or healthcare, right? They're usually more of a representative of the company than they are your representative and champion. And even if that's not what you think you do, or you believe that you're an advocate and a champion for employees, you have to look at your role and your function through the lens of the people around you and not just yourself, because it gets very easy to kind of put yourself in a box and then allow yourself to be disrupted because you weren't disrupting yourself first.
Now, I have...
So I wanted to share some data. I think this was 2017, 2018. This was the time, so it was a survey that showed the time that L&D practitioners spent. 31% was spent designing and developing training programs. 27% was spent delivering training programs. 22% was spent evaluating effectiveness of training programs. 18% was spent managing the learning function. Only 14% was spent consulting with business leaders. And that's what JD was saying. Because if you're not aware of what business leaders are thinking, then 6% of your time is spent doing something that business leaders might not want. And I think that's what needs to change. So if you ask me what needs to change as we involve AI more in human resources and L&D, practitioners need to understand the business more. They need to know how many HR practitioners and L&D people understand the business model of their company. Do they understand the business model? Do they understand how things in a global perspective affect their business? Take, for example, a lot of Nigerians who leave the country, who jackpot, go to Canada, okay? You have a new government in Canada. You have Makani, who has a different view of global politics. How does that affect, people coming to Canada? Do you think it doesn't affect? But how many people in HR would think about it? It's not important. We are so focused designing training program, and we are not, looking beyond and say how is what is happening externally affecting my company? How can I manage my people better? So as we use AI, we need to spend more time understanding the business, speaking with the business leaders, and understanding how the external context affect how employees deliver value. I think for me, those are the things that we need to focus more in human resources.
So we don't need too many trainings or more trainings. We just need to have a proper view of things and breaking down into what can actually impact everybody positively. I mean, that's one of the things I'm hearing, because it feels like some have associated trainings, lots of it, with the departments. And the other question I was going to ask, which came out from JD's, I think it was one of the write-up again from him that I saw about, yes, we do have maybe the efficiency these days, and it feels like people are able to get lots done in little time. But the human connection is something that we might be missing, right? I want to ask you on that, and just take us through the thought process that birthed that about, yes, we might have increased efficiency, but we might be losing connection.
Technology is bad at human connection. I think we're there at this point, right? After 20 years of social media and 30 plus years of the internet, there are people who connect and are on Discord servers and make friends with people they've never met in real life. And there are moments like that. But I think especially when you take it to the workplace, whether you're a remote worker, you're in a physical location, technology turns human connection into transactions, right? You send an email, you send a Slack message or a Microsoft Teams message, ask a question, get your information, move on. And I've been a remote employee for the better part of 15 years. And it's very easy to notice when I'm on a Zoom watching people in a room have the meeting and I'm coming into the meeting from afar, I'm not having the same experience as they are, right? They come into the room, they're all having side conversations about things that are happening outside of this meeting. And I'm sitting waiting for the meeting because I can't have a side conversation in a setting like this. And then the meeting begins. And what do I get? I get the work side of the conversation. I don't get any of the personal side of the conversation. And now when you apply AI into the story, I mean, I'm sure people out there who go to a lot of meetings, especially on Zoom, have been in meetings where there are more AI note takers than there are physical people in the meeting. So the question becomes, if AI is paying attention for you, are you even paying attention to what's going on? Or are you just getting the notes later? As digital assistants become more common in the workplace, which again, I think great tools. So I'm not saying any of these tools are bad. But when you have a digital assistant now, and maybe I don't have to send the Teams messages as much anymore, because I just ask the digital assistant who has access to all of our company information for the answer, I get what I need and I move on. So we're just kind of eating away at these moments where we would have had those interactions
yeah,
in different ways. And if we don't step in and figure out, how do we augment that experience? How do we recreate those moments of connection and not just allow the work to become more and more about productivity, more and more about every time being used in the best possible, most efficient way possible, technology helping us do that? We're eating away at the fact that work is fundamentally about people working with people. A company is just a bunch of people pointed in the same direction with a shared objective and mission. We're eating away at that experience. And I think the other challenge is if we believe that like this is HR's job to figure this out, no, because HR doesn't decide how work gets done, right? Again, decision makers and executives and people who run functions and teams decide how work gets done. HR should be influencing that conversation, but I don't think that's the role that a lot of business leaders look at HR as playing, right? HR is a little bit more of the regulatory group, the compliance group, the people who make sure the boxes get checked, who deal with employment law, like those folks, pay and time and these types of things. So I think it's important for us to figure out, well, how do we, as people are managing functions or managing teams, make sure we create space and create time, especially for those connections. And I do think people are noticing. I think we largely let it go, especially over the last 6+ years, the whole conversation around remote work. I think a lot of companies figured out how to do the job remotely, but didn't figure out how to build relationships remotely because it's hard and it requires additional effort to do it. So in learning and development, as an example, I'm seeing more and more companies talk about the fact that we're going back to more in-person activities. People are kind of pushing aside the fact that, are using this opportunity to say, I don't want another online course. I don't necessarily want another Zoom session. I want an opportunity to connect because the technology is helping us think about it differently. Because if we have AI available and every employee has a digital assistant that speaks their preferred language, now I don't have to necessarily push as much information at you, right? Because now I can say, well, if you have a question, just ask. You can always get the right answer, hopefully, from the digital assistant, which means I don't have to push as much information at you through courses, which means I can start to rethink, well, what does learning to do the job mean? And how can we take advantage of the moments where people actually learn the most, which is by doing the job and working with other people and not staring at a screen, having information be pushed at them. So if we can use this as a chance to kind of rebalance and go back a bit to where we once were, because that used to be what learning at work was, right? Was working with the people around you when the technology piece wasn't there. We used technology for the past 20+ years to become faster and more consistent and more efficient, and left behind a lot of the things that people valued the most. Employees filled in the gaps, right, as best they could, but it's getting harder and harder. So I think we can't do things for altruistic reasons. We can't go to senior stakeholders and say connection's important. It's usually not like the KPI. It's not the goal. It's not human connection. It's profitability and outcomes and customer experience and those types of things. So we still have to connect the dots between, well, how is fostering greater trust and relationships and connection going to be of value to the organization? But as long as we can do that, I think that's, again, a chance for us to make work more human as we're using technology to take care of the right parts of that human experience.
I want you to add to that, and I also want you to infuse another side, because one of the questions I was going to ask is, how important is the connection in the workplace, especially when you just suppose that with some mentalities of, I don't have to be friends with my work colleagues, or not everybody in the workspace is your friend. They just get the job done and go, and the work is being done. So first of all, how important is the connection in the workplace? And with that mentality. And the third question would be, so then what's the role of the HR in fostering or establishing or reconnecting, and also the role of the employee. Sorry, the question
Yeah,
in one.
it's fine. So what's the role of the physical connection?
Yes.
That's why I came here physically today. You know, I could have joined on Zoom, but there's a difference when you are here, relating with somebody one-on-one. It's a totally different experience. And I'll use another example. Jamie Dimon. JD will know Jamie Dimon. He's the CEO of um uh, what's the bank again? I forgot it.
Chase.
Chase. Yeah, Chase. So he's been having this ongoing, with some people in this company because he's ordered everybody, most people back to work. They just found out that creativity, there's something was missing when most people were working outside of the office. It cannot be recreated online. It cannot. There is something that happens when humans connect. That's why we are humans. We connect. So yes, we can use technology to an extent, but we can never eliminate the physical connection. It's something unique to humans, and I think we must keep that. Now, what's the role of HR or L&D? And I think back to the point that JD raised, if you are so busy looking inward, trying to do the work, you will never have those conversations with the business leaders. That's my concern. That in human resources and L&D, we are too busy looking inwards. We are too busy creating content. We are too busy that we are not having conversations with business leaders. You understand? It is in such conversations that you can begin to put facts on ground and let them know the consequences. When that is not happening, you will just be, like JD said, it will only be part of the consequences of the decisions of business leaders. So my recommendation would be people in human resources in that space need to create time to engage business leaders. They need to understand business. Because, I mean, if you meet a CEO or top executives, they would only listen to you when what you are saying, when it's spoken through the profitability and returns language. Do you understand? If that's not how you communicate, they won't listen to you. So, but you can only do that when you understand business, when you can interpret people information into naira, like you say, naira and common information. Then they will listen to you. So I think that's extremely important, whereby HR leaders are able to sit with business leaders and let them understand the consequences of some of the decisions and understand what needs to be done. If that doesn't happen, business leaders, most of them will not on their own make those choices. They have to be encouraged. They have to be given information to make the right choices. I don't know if I.
Yes, and then there is the role of the employee as well. Do they have to do anything, or they just have to follow suit, or they have to give nudges to the HR leaders?
Wow. So this I see. I now in this whole AI era, I see the role of employees slightly different. Um, in a way, you have to think about yourself, and it's important. So this is why. One of the You have to understand what happens. What does AI bring? What are the consequences of AI? You're talking about rapid change. You're talking about uncertainty. You're talking about disruptions. As an employee, what you want is stability. That's basically what you want in such times. So you have to ask yourself, how do you create stability for yourself first in these disruptions? And I said this a couple of in the last session that I was here. I think as employees, the first thing that we have to be thinking about is financial discipline. Because you are living in a disruptive era. Things will happen. You have no idea what's going to happen. We don't know what will happen in 2, 3, 4 years' time. So this is sort of time where employees should be financially disciplined, save money, invest, because you are not sure what's going to happen. It's important. That's one. Secondly, we employees have to be curious and always learning. We have to be learning. We have to be learning. And thirdly, employees have to be able to see what is relevant from all the noise out there. There's a lot of noise out there, a lot of information that's out there. And this is what I mean. Take, for example, the big tech firms and the AI firms. at the end of the day, what they are concerned about is selling their product and services. That's basically what they are concerned. And there's a lot of information coming from them about what's happening there. So as employees, you have to be able to say, okay, well, there's a lot of information out there about AI, what AI will do, what AI will not do. But at the end of the day, do I understand that first as a person, I'm able to put myself in a position where I can thrive in a period of uncertainty? I'm able to take information that is relevant and not irrelevant. And that brings me back to the popular phrase that says that um, AI will not take your job. Somebody using AI will take your job. But if you understand in the right context, that's not necessarily true, because what's coming and what will come will be system changes that, whether you understand AI or not understand AI, it does not make a difference. So if you ask me, this is sort of mentality that I think employees should have, that will really put them in a good position when when we begin to experience these changes.
At some point, I was going to ask the question, the direct mentality of I'm more valuable because I get more done with AI, but I believe in there you've answered the question. But I'll just come to you, JD, for recommendations for the employee as well. He has talked about financial stability and discipline for you to be prepared. So, in your, I don't know if you have something like that in your playbook, but in terms of how people can achieve stability and not just be tossed around, what would be your recommendation for employees in this AI era?
So I did work wrong. I came into the working world thinking if I do a good job, I will climb the ladder. There's a path, and that if I do my part, the organization does their part, and opportunities show up. Yeah. And I very quickly came to the realization. I wish I came to the realization faster, but I started to figure out over time that's not how anything works. It's not a fair trade. Right? You're not owed anything. And a company is not your family. Yeah. They're just renting your services. That's what this is.
For a period of time.
Yeah. Yes. And I worked for one of the most mission-driven organizations in the world. And I'm not going to take anything away from that. We were all there because we believed in what we were doing. And that never went away. I still believe that. And it's been years since I worked with Disney. But there's a trade-off there. And I think you have to come into work with a certain mentality around what the relationship is. And I think that helps you stay open to the fact that you're not owed anything. There's not going to be a straight road ahead. I believe organizations owe people opportunity to try new things and explore and develop. But I think it's mutually beneficial. When you give people a chance to expand what they can do, you get benefit and the person also gets benefit. But I think you as an individual will struggle if you wait for the company to open that door. And I tell a story in my new book about the fact when I was 19 years old, I worked at a movie theater in my hometown. And during my first time working there, I got promoted pretty quickly to a supervisor job. And then I went to college in Orlando, 1,200 miles away. And I got a job at the theater there. And I thought they would keep me on as a supervisor because, I'd earned that position at the other location. And they didn't. They didn't know me. So they made me a staff member again. And I was angry, but I went along with it because I'm like, all right, they don't know. And then for the next several months, I started to notice that they were taking advantage of the fact that I could do a bunch of stuff because I knew how to do the job and I was really good at it. They didn't promote me, though. And I think most people would leave that job and quit and walk away. I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let this beat me. And it was the day that I realized I controlled my career. I promoted myself. So I went backstage, changed my uniform into a supervisor uniform, and just went back to work and became a supervisor. And no one noticed. Because all the managers assumed someone else had promoted me. They all knew I was good at the job. And I just became, and it's this really strange moment where that doesn't work. I do not recommend people out there just like take the job, but it's more of a mentality thing. As Azeez said, a lot of our challenges are more mindset than they are tools and technologies and things like that. But it was the moment that I realized like, no, okay, the company's going to open doors here and there. I have to be ready to walk through that door when it becomes available. Now, AI is changing where those doors are. Technology constantly evolves the way work is done. So I think it's up to each individual to be ready to take advantage of opportunities when the companies open them. But it is our job to figure out what is that path and how do I keep evolving, keep improving myself and keep myself ready so that when that opportunity emerges, you can step in and take advantage. Don't expect the company to hand it to you. It's just not going to work that way, especially in a world where people are driving efficiency, the do more with less mentality. You have to be ready as an individual and take advantage of what opportunities are afforded.
As we gradually draw to the end of today's conversation, just the same way we started by understanding that value should not be a word that we throw around, I want us to close this with what learning and development looks like in this age. And again, that's triggered by one of the things that JD wrote, saying that he's over the years is gradually fading out learning from his vocabulary, professional vocabulary. And I also say that because I know that I have seen many people online who say, don't be so quick to take that online course. So in this age and time, if we're looking at telling employees to be valuable to themselves and be ready for the future, what does learning look like?
For me, it's a bigger conversation about how we help people do their best work. And the answer is not always learning, right? To solve this problem or to be able to complete this task, it's not always about what I know or what skills I have. Sometimes it's just a matter of what resources I have available. Do I have the right checklist? Can I ask a question and get the answer in a way that's going to help me serve a customer or solve a problem? So I think the picture of what teams like learning and development HR do needs to expand to include all of these different kind of systems and processes and tools and tactics that we can use to help people perform and not default to, well, they need to learn something. And when we do that, when we make it more about how can I help you do your best work every day, we expand our tools, we expand the mindset of what learning at work means. And then when it is time to help people learn something, to grow their knowledge or to develop a new skill, we can use the right tools, right? The right systems, the right processes, because people don't have a ton of extra time at work. And if we try to spend that time pushing information at people on every regulatory topic and every product and all of these different things, we're never going to get to the skills that are going to really help people move forward and help the organization move forward. So for me, learning at work is moving away from, as Azeez mentioned, from programs more towards systems. The systems that I can use to help people perform their best every day, more often than not, it's going to be a different solution to help you solve a problem and perform at your best and to hit your goal. And then we're going to spend time focused on what we would typically call learning or training on the skills that really make a difference, because I don't have to push every piece of information at you. And thankfully, that is an unlock that AI is giving us. We're rebalancing. What do people actually have to know to do their jobs versus what they can reference? So what learning at work looks like is changing. But the thing I would add on to that is that learning doesn't change, though, because learning is a human process. It always comes back to that, right? If you learn, what you learn, how you learn, that's up to you. It's just my job to create the conditions and create the systems that give you a chance to be able to learn and do your best.
So if an employee is thinking right now, I want to be relevant in the now and in the future, and I want to acquire skills that will always make me valuable and timeless, what would those skills look like?
Before I answer that, I should add to what JD said. In 2016, I attended a conference, and one of the sessions talked about invincible learning.
Mm.
So learning that happens without somebody deliberately telling you to learn. And one of the best ways of learning is practice. It is one of the best ways of learning. So if you ask me, companies should create opportunities where people practice more, little ways where failures can be tolerated. It's the best way of learning, on the job, hands-on, practice more. Now, so for employees, if you ask me, learning agility is very critical. The willingness to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. It is so critical. You understand? That mentality of wanting to learn is extremely important. I've said this before, I'll say it again. One of the things that you need at this time is financial discipline. It's too important. I'm telling you the truth. We are entering a disruptive era. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I said it last time I was here. Elon Musk and Sam Altman have mentioned this, the issue of universal basic income. We do not know what AI would bring. We do not know whether people would have jobs. I'm telling you, you have to be financially disciplined. You have to, yes, you're making money, you have to save that money, you have to invest that money. It's extremely important. We don't know what's going to happen. That for me is critical, along with learning agility, being curious. Because I can tell you, learn a bunch of AI skills. Tomorrow they might be obsolete.
What about people management?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. So you remember I talked about the issue of practice learning on the job, and if you look at it, if you are people management in a way, it's kind of like built into learning on the job, the hands-on learning. Because if you're learning, if someone is teaching you, you're learning under someone, you will basically be familiar with all the people management skills. So in a way, it's embedded in that learning on the job, that practice, that doing things by yourself, that trying out something, even when you feel you have the opportunity of doing it over. That for me is the one of the most important ways of learning.
So, are we going to say that entrepreneurs or business owners should be more forgiving then? If we're going to make people or say that people should learn on the job, do they have to be more forgiving, or they should just stick to I want my value, I want my profit, I want my return?
JD can answer that, but what I would say is that um, opportunities have to be created for people where people can fail, and the failure is not catastrophic. Because you have to practice. You have to. If you do not practice, then a lot of what you learn is just sitting in your head and it never comes to life. But I would like to hear JD's view on
Sure.
that.
Just to add on to the question about skills, I
Yeah.
agree with you. Said learning's a skill, like learning how to learn and having
Yes.
the discipline to focus on not just checking the box every day, going to work, going home, going to work, finding those opportunities and those avenues. Like you said, the company's not necessarily going to always afford you the time or the opportunity. It's up to you to develop that level of agility. I think one of the most underrated skills in the workplace is influence, the ability to help people see ideas or see opportunities and to think differently. So influence is a huge skill. And then in a world where everyone's going to have the same tools, it's kind of like the internet, right? You don't have better internet than I do, right? We all kind of play in the same space. AI is going to eventually get to that place where it just changed technology and now we're all playing in the same sandbox. So in that world, the ability to build relationships, to interact with people, to speak and to influence people to action, those are defined skills that don't go away, regardless of how AI impacts work. Because ultimately, in some way, this game is still going to be about people influencing other people and working with other people and a lot of robots, right? Yeah. So yes, there's going to be defined skills that come out of changes in how work works, managing technology, building technology is going to look different, using technology in different ways. But I think if you're looking for what's the skill set that's going to keep you in a place where you can define your value and elevate your value, it's those people skills of influence, moving people to action, managing, being a great people manager. That's a completely different set of skills. So look in those directions because I don't think those are going out of style.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the lens with which you've provided us for us to be able to look at this issue and the redefinition of value, of learning, of development, and the ability to survive and be stable in these times. Maybe we could have a part three sometime because we focused on the employees, we've focused on the HR manager. I think we need to talk to business owners. We need to talk to the ones who are making the decision. Yes, we need to. So I guess we'll have to come back to this one at a time that is convenient for everyone. But congratulations on your book that will be out in May. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I was going to say that, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Azeez is one of the awesome contributors to my book. It's called The Frontline Enablement Playbook. Comes out May 5th. You can learn more at frontlineplaybook.com, be available around the world. And essentially, I worked with more than 50 contributors from around the world to tell the story of frontline and deskless workers. So the people who work in restaurants and contact centers and manufacturing facilities and banks, the people that are 80% of the global workforce, do the heavy lifting to keep businesses and communities moving forward, and don't get talked about a lot when it comes to conversations around workplace learning and development or the future of work. And right now, it's the audience that's being less disrupted by AI because it's corporate and knowledge workers that are the ones who are really having a challenge right now when it comes to how the impact of AI. the Frontline really understands transformation because they've been living automation and digital transformation for the last 30 years. So the Frontline Enablement Playbook explores how organizations, so operations managers, HR teams, learning and development teams, can improve the processes and tools and tactics they use to help frontline workers do their best every day. One, so frontline employees have an opportunity to succeed and to thrive, but also so that the business achieves its values. Because it's not just about doing the right thing, it's about doing the right thing for the organization. So thanks so much to Azeez and everyone who contributed stories to the book. Like I said, it'll be out May 5th, and frontlineplaybook.com is where you can learn more and grab a copy on pre-order right now.
That's exciting. Maybe we'll have you back then to talk a little bit about it and also see the superpowers of the ones in front and the ones doing it. I like how you said they do the heavy lifting. I do hope that the business owners realize that they do the heavy lifting indeed. Thank you, Mr. Azeez, for being here.
Sure.
All right, you can find both of them on LinkedIn. They're very active. They're always sharing insight. You can find Azeez Omosun on LinkedIn. That's EEZOMOSUN, right?
Yeah.
And you can find JD Dillon on LinkedIn as well. So you can follow them and all the articles as well as the opportunities that they share in case you want to reach out to them and know more about their thoughts on what we've discussed. And you can find this video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at Smooth 91 FM Lagos. That's the YouTube channel. Share this with someone who you think needs to have this information and for them to not be shocked by the wave that is blowing. So at youtube.com/Smooth 91 FM Lagos. We're done with Office Journal for today, but we'll be back next week again from 11 right here on Smooth 19.1. My name is Oluwaseun, and the Smooth Station continues. Thank you very much. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for so much for having me. And thanks to Azeez for the invite.